Good afternoon, HubSpot Nation, LinkedIn friends. Maybe there's going to be a couple people on YouTube too. Welcome to another edition of Let's Build GTM with Mr. Rob Jones, the mayor of Inbound himself, with his orange jacket at the ready in
Yep.
case we just need him to just, give us a super special spring spotlight recap.
Yeah.
How you doing, man?
I'm good. Part of the orange jacket is because the masters may or may not be on in the background on mute. Just being very honest, kind of trying to see what Scheffler does here in a minute. But I'm going to pay attention here and focus. I'll turn this off. Orange jackets are, I think there are fewer of them that have been awarded. So I take pride in having this behind me. I'm never going to win a green jacket. Let's just be clear about that. But yeah, orange jacket is here.
And remind me how you won the orange jacket again?
I bought it actually. Purchased from a store called, or an online shop called You're So Ugly Today. It's kind of as close as I could get within budget to something that looked relatively professional and not a clown suit or whatever. But yeah, $47. Spent actually 60 having it tailored. That was just not going to work at all. I think it was like a 5X. So I spent more on getting it kind of fit to my body than I did on the actual jacket itself. But the ROI, continues to pay off.
Oh man,
Incalculable even.
would you bow in reverence or run the other direction if somebody that actually fit a 5X bright orange jacket started walking towards you?
Bow in reverence.
Okay.
It wasn't that it didn't. It wasn't that it was so much larger necessarily, all the way around, but the shoulders kind of fit, but the rest of it was like a funnel, just straight this.
Yeah, I
So
can't have that.
the top was like a 1X or 2X. The bottom was like a blanket or a fitted sheet.
Okay.
It was very odd, but it looks great now. I mean, I've been photographed by paparazzi and other people in it, so it's got kind of the built-in reflective thing as well. I think that's part of why
It does. Like, I cannot stop staring at it right now.
I can move it if you need me to.
No, all good. Well, I hope you get to keep wearing it because, like, with 280 plus updates, AI doing just about everything now. I'm not sure. Like, is there anything left for us to do? I think HubSpot's just gonna handle it for people.
I already put in a petition to kind of change the mayor of Inbound name and just add an A or add an I right after the A to be like the mayor of Inbound. Mayor. I don't know how to say that, but it was denied. Might figure out a way to sneak that in there anyway.
Yeah. An interesting week. That's for sure. We did our best to go through 38 updates this morning. Still missed some. Again, while we do all this content, I somehow got on with Willem and he something that wasn't even on the list of 280 wasn't in our updates, and it's going to help people onboard apparently. But yeah, man, what do you make of all this? What's the hubbub out there with, are people paying attention? Maybe that's the first question, like with all these updates.
You know what they say about people that assume, Chris? Makes an ass out of you and me. So I wouldn't assume they are, not from a lack of interest, but just people are busy, I know that we have, I think Brendan was there yesterday at the event, which is pretty cool. So I've definitely been aware of some of the change, but 280 is a lot, right? Even if you read the whole list, even you, who's more on top of this than a lot of other people, either some snuck by you or you forgot or missed them or, I don't know. So it'd be helpful to talk through kind of what you got out of it. I know that they're making a big push there. I kind of read the cliff notes, but you sound like you have some opinions that you want to put out there again.
Well, I'm trying to bridge us towards, again, coming back to the idea of like, if you're not putting yourself out there content wise, or, GTM has to change because literally most of the things that you would have classified as GTM, like we got all these agents now doing stuff, like doing the prospecting, doing the customer facing, question and answer, knowledge base, dude. knowledge base agent, right? So I engage with a customer agent bot. The knowledge base agent sees the gaps and then creates the content for us to just press publish, right? So something that came up as we were, we were talking yesterday, about some strategy about content and how we're going to show up, a little bit more soon. Really excited about that. But it came up today again with George earlier when we were talking through this. Like, classically, you would build a knowledge base or you'd build a go-to-market strategy by trying to strategically prompt your audience, prompt the target market that you think you have, ask about their problems, ask, do, panels and what's that thing where you get everybody in the room and you ask them all the same questions. B2C does it a lot. Focus groups, right? And you get them in a place where it's like, okay, you're here to do this. You're here to give us this information, right? And now we're going to get it from you, right? Yeah. It's harder to do that nowadays. People are busy. They're looking for self-service information. They want you to read their minds. Now that they know you have access to AI, they want to know that you're getting it to get help with reading their minds. At least if you're not showing up like right in front of them, right? And I think it's another, notch on the, show up every day belt, to where if, like, is it the worst now if your knowledge base isn't complete, right? And you can just set it up with like a user manual or something, like let's say from a manufacturing perspective, you can load it up. Naturally, your user manual probably doesn't have all the questions answered. But instead of like trying to layer on a strategy of what content do we need to create, you just put it out there. Now you got this customer agent working. And what that's doing is it's enabling engagement in a way that you could not. And because you're getting the engagement, because you're getting the conversation, you're getting the answers that you want. And now you can create the content that starts to fill those gaps. Where what we have talked about before, when you're creating content and you're participating in the community conversation, engagement happens, answers happen, questions happen, problems show up, solutions show up, resonation happens, right? You don't have to.
I think you're getting to taking a long way to get to where how people say like market like a media company, right? Or build your, right. You've heard that. Yeah. And we've had the talk here before. That's like, I don't think for me, that means something different. Like, yes, use media. I would say obviously, but that's not the definition of media people are referring to. It means you need to be like incredibly reactive, almost real time, like a paid media, not paid media, a media access person at a sporting event or at the news or at a political event. So if that's where you're going, like, how would you build your knowledge base or CRM like a media company? Immediately being able to like update and enhance using AI or whatever, the speed at which you updated knowledge base and you updated some of the community or customer source questions and then address them. Overlaying that over whatever you have existing or whatever you've built and kind of using that, synthesizing it into your process. I don't just think it's, going to happen if it's not already happening, but it's brilliant. Like, it's hard. We just talked about not even knowing all the updates, and you follow them incredibly specifically. But if an agent or whatnot can help with that, like a media company, by having recurring tasks or being prompted by things that are going to happen or that are happening in the markets or happening with tariffs. I mean, it's not to go into that, but it's making things change. It's having an impact. And so being able to just scrape for that with an agent and make changes like a media at the speed of a media company, maybe I should say, That would be, that's
Yeah.
insane. To me, that's a very alluring possibility, everything else aside.
Yeah. No, it should be like you're running out of excuses to get the content done
Yeah.
at this point. And like this kind of agent layer that's happening in HubSpot, like George made a good point. It's like maybe we can add our knowledge base articles to a campaign now because they're doing work for us. Like how close are we to okay, customer agent receives the question. And this is where it's like traditionally we've got people that are supposed to be doing this, right? And we all say that we want to, like, oh, customer, success or customer service, let us know what questions you got this week and how you answered them. Share the emails with us, send it over to marketing, and we'll write up the article. And then we'll pass it through 3 layers of approval. And then we'll maybe publish it by the end of the month.
It's too long.
Right now it's customer agent receives conversation. Knowledge base agent is watching those conversations and comparing it to the knowledge base. It suggests and drafts the article, right? Probably, I'm sure there's a setting that will allow us to just let it publish it like very soon. If we have that, now we have social media agent letting people know the new content exists, right? And that's where like shifting your mindset, if you're in that chain anywhere and you're customer facing, now your goal is to be there when it gets shared to engage, right? Because if it's powerful enough, if people, that's the beauty of this. Like if it's coming through the customer agent, you don't have to figure out like what they want. They're already telling you what they want the answers to, right? So if one person does it, when we post it on social, how many other people are going to show up and be like, yep, finally, thank God somebody's answering this, right? Now, if we're not there as the humans ready to like feed that engagement, right? Or maybe probably early on, say, okay, AI, maybe we didn't draft this perfectly and we got to change some of the words, right? But facilitating that active conversation, man, it's so powerful.
Yes, all of that. I've said that with what you're saying, that happens right now, right? Everywhere else is that people will say something and people respond to it pretty quickly with an answer or with that type of engagement is social media.
Right.
Period. So I've said, I saw Peter Caputa, I think, say this the other day. It made me feel really smart. And then like I've been saying this, that the future of sales is marketing, the future of marketing is service. I think the future of service is media. Like how amazing, this is an odd example, would you feel if you had a complaint with, I don't know, some issue that needed to be resolved by, just throw a random Generico, right? They do whatever for you.
My favorite.
Generico, yeah, I've used them a couple times as my ridiculous example. But you go and say something in a forum, maybe not even directly to them, just like, oh, yeah, I wouldn't use this, or this issue's been happening, and they show up with news coverage, like seriously, of like, this cannot stand. We are calling a town hall right now to figure out who is responsible. We're going to, would that not, I mean, as far as that level of response, you talk about like the Airbnb model of like, no, 5 is not the highest,
Right.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Would that save you? Would that help prevent churn? Would that like be perceived as valuable to you? And people like Slack do it just for a more, an example in more proximity on LinkedIn. Love their account. Whoever runs it, you deserve a promotion, because they're always in there talking and responding to feature ideas, or, hey, Slack, I love you, but this thing isn't very good, or whatever. They at least do it in that way. And it seems with like their account following and the urgency a lot of the times in which they respond, it's like a media event. Like it is them responding to that type of issue or request or piece of feedback or whatever it is. Can you see that happening? Like, does that transition kind of make sense in your head?
Well, it has to. Like, it's the only way. Like, if you say that you want to keep up and you want to be relevant, right? Like, they just dropped 280 updates. Like, and credit to Charles Elmer, like from Bayer Bradford, they got like serious interest in stuff that they do at Data Warehouse. um, which is like their app company, and they've been focused on multi-portal, um, management, migrations, just handling that enterprise, that very kind of specific like enterprise use case. They've got some great apps. Well, now HubSpot's doing some stuff there.
Yeah.
And he literally last week, and this is the game, right? Like I love this. Like I've only read one book from Gary V last year, and it was Day Trading Attention. And it was so like it was just so like confirming and like a warm blanket when he said, look, business owners, this is the game. If it's on you to decide to play it or not, if you decide to not play it, you will lose.
Yep.
Right. And so if Charles decides to start promoting his products that he also is aware HubSpot is developing similar products. So what he do yesterday, as the updates come out, he's like, hey, update. HubSpot just made this change. They're moving in the right direction, but this is where the differences still are, right? Instead of just continuing to promote, like in a usual campaign, it would be like, all right, we developed the assets. Let's just keep pushing them out, like no matter what happens, right? And as you probably know, I definitely think about media company. Like when I'm saying it, like what you describe applies. Like, and like I've only done it one time, and I'm going to get to like why we don't see this more in a second, or I'll ask you like when Cashflow was acquired, because I was already talking to Bill Barless about let's doing a show, like let's build CPQ. That ended up being the first one. I was like, all right, dude, like this is huge news. It's super relevant to what we're going to do with you. So let's just go live like on a Friday afternoon, because that's when the news dropped that day.
Yep.
Right. And we went live.
You don't want to do it too late. Just a little media trick here. Anything Friday after 3 or 4 is a media dump. It's like that's when you report stuff you don't want people to know about because nobody cares or hears it until Monday. So don't do that. But yeah, continue.
There you go. So today, as I like something I'm super interested in, like building portals for people, right? Helping people with ERP integrations. The customer agent, another customer agent update is you can have the customer agent itself start API calls to other systems to get data like order status, which is the whole reason I help people build portals, right? That anybody who has a self-service portal, like that portal just 100x in value if you implement this thing. So I was like halfway joking with Bill. I'm like, this is probably breaking news worthy, like for a lot of the stuff that we care about. So that's where, why not just like get online and stream about it and talk about it and make sure it's in front of people's faces and, in front of their eyes, ears, all that stuff. Why is it so hard for us to get into a breaking news mindset? I'll say the other way
it's not hard
to
for
support
me.
this, right? The other way to support this is by having scheduled events that put you in a spot where no matter what happens, you're there and ready to talk about it. Right?
It's called a press conference. So yeah, all of that.
I'd say it's more like Sports Center. I'd say like every day we're showing up, like our updates, our morning show, like whatever HubSpot does, we are there in the morning to talk about the updates, right?
Well, I was more referring to big, like yesterday, right? Big events, all the updates. It's like they or somebody, I guess press conference would be more them speaking on their own behalf, which is kind of what they did. The point is like there's different levels of stuff. If it recurs every day at the same time or every week at the same day, same time, that's one thing. If it occurs immediately after an announcement to explain, that's another thing. And if people just cover and respond, that's more media news, like third party. I think that's more validating to hear somebody else's opinion, right? It's not like they're going to come out and point out a bunch of flaws with features that they just they're not going to do that, and they shouldn't. But it's more authentic and verifying if what you just said, newsflash, if you have a a portal that does this, you just 100x. So congratulations, you probably need to figure out what to do with it. That's like media coverage or color commentary or whatever they call it, where there's an opinion piece. It's like op-ed visual.
Yeah.
People pay more attention to that. And I think you said, like, why don't we do that? There's Yamini said yesterday, or Christina Tosi said yesterday, Yamini's post quoted her, that said, the bigger you are, the smaller you act. I think that can be repeated in reverse as well. But like being able to pay attention at scale is harder to get more granular. It's the whole 10,000, 30,000, 50,000 foot view. That's why other people can do it a lot better. My example from Slack, like, yeah, we just changed this for you, or we just updated our emoji library, right? They are huge. They act very small because that's one-to-one engagement, right? So I think that's applicable for media and posting and creating content. But for this, for example, I feel like this makes us seem, because it's like this live, it's got banners. We look like we're on some show talking about the updates, but that's the topic is relatively niche. So if you wanted to kind of color the quote that way, with like, the bigger you are, the smaller you act, and the smaller should be your audience size, right? So
for everybody though, right?
Right, you're right. So if it's Slack with however many followers and employees and however big they are, talking to one person individually, right, with their social account or solving a problem, whatever, that is to me what that signifies. But it could also be, one level above that, a specific audience size about a specific thing. And so that almost then gives the illusion of being much bigger than you are, is if you take that attention to detail and that level of care, and that, the matrix I talked about, quick response, valuable, like consistently happening, is kind of the unlock.
Right. And that, I think that consistently happening part is probably the most challenging for everybody. And that's where
but not for an agent. That's where, like, that's part of the unlock. Like, to be able to do it consistently. I don't think we figured that out yet, of the bandwidth and time, a lot of what AI and LLMs can do, and it being useful. What do you then do with your time? Or like, where, what all do you choose to use that on behalf of? And to quote LL Cool J, just because you're doing it doesn't mean you're doing it and doing it and doing it well, right? So getting better about it a ton, like over and over and over again, consistently, is important. And an agent or agentic workflows or whatnot can help supplement that just by being consistent by virtue of how they're programmed. You know what I mean? Like that. It's more of it's less of a replacement and more of an augmentation. I'm everywhere. I'm very spastic. That means I'm flighty, but I have a lot of attention and I pay attention to a lot of different things at one time. So having anything in the background working to, like, hey, this thing's done for you. This was a really great idea you had. I went and did it. It'll be here for you every Friday at 2:00. So you can do this recap. That takes people that are already, have weird skill sets or ideas, and like, it super enhances them, I would think.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing, like, how do we, that's a big part of value first, and it's hard not to just quote George when we do so much content with him. But yeah, like when we were doing the AI show this morning, it's like, get rid of all your preconceived like notions, how it's been in the past, because what you just described should be very possible now for anybody that owns HubSpot, like literally anybody, right? Any business. They have to decide that it's in their best interest as a business to show up as a media company. And it makes no sense to the usual B2B, especially SaaS model, because none of the old KPIs like support doing that, right? And if we can't unlock like our brains to that, because you have to want to be the media company to set up the process of having AI be consistent in a very specific way, to say, hey, I need to be the human being on camera or in front of people or talking to people. Because what happens is we're like, all right, I see Rob and Chris on, like, if they can do it, I can do it. Let me go get a StreamYard account. Let me just like set up my LinkedIn. And then you spend any amount of time, you don't see the engagement that you're hoping for, and you don't repurpose the content, you stop showing up, and you're like, okay, that's not for me. I guess we can't do that. Right? Like the
You're lying to
execution.
yourself. I hit 10,000 followers today. So shout out to myself, I guess. Whatever. I didn't do it in 6 weeks with the course. I didn't do it. And I see that all the time. And I'm like, man, that would be cool to 10X, in a week. But 3 years in, just, steady, consistent, forcing it. I think last time we said that art is like not a hobby. So I like all the creative stuff. I love thinking about human behavior. That's what buying and selling is. So all of this is like right in my, collegiate background, all of that. That's what I went to school for. With that, that is a setup for, I had a meeting booked, didn't know where it came, forgot I had a meeting link on my LinkedIn for booking an appointment, right? And it looked very sales in nature, had no clue. So I emailed, didn't hear a response back, just, canceled the meeting off. Got a response and it was like, hey, we're interested, legit. Sorry I didn't, respond to this. This is a real call. Pass it over, and it's a legitimate, like really good opportunity, and it was sourced from this show among other videos.
Man,
So
those are the best too. Like,
you
and
need to
even
be
that,
able to woo harder, Chris. Look, you are on camera all that. You got to be able to just get a woo out there if it's good. That's what I did whenever I saw it. But talking about humans showing up, like,
but when you saw it, your B2B kicked in and you're like, oh, I don't know what the hell this is. I gotta qualify this shit. I'm deleting it off my calendar.
yeah, I felt pretty bad about it, to be honest. But I mean,
Right?
it's during this show already. That's my buddy, by the way, the Purple Skittle Bandit.
Hey, buddy.
Yeah, I've had
Purple
a spam
Skittle
call.
Bandit. I
That's
love me some purple Skittles.
yes, he is the Purple Skittle Bandit. He's 6. He's great. His birthday's coming up too, so thinking about him. But I don't know if you get spam calls. I block them. I delete them. There's all kinds of. I felt like it was some sort of pitch request, and again, I'm guilty of it too.
Oh,
I think
hypersensitive.
Hypersensitive, very conditioned to think that. Guess what it is sometimes? Content having resonated and worked. I was shocked shitless, if I can say that on LinkedIn. Why not? I said it. But yeah, I mean, but that's the point, is like, I thought the same thing forever. I still, even right now, think it a lot of the times where, why does what I have to say or my opinion matter? Right. And I've found that for me, I'm not as much of an expert on like the leagues that I'm playing in with everybody at Rev Partners and everybody in the HubSpot ecosystem and Sprocketeer. I'm at the bottom as far as like technical expertise. I'm at the top as far as like being able to translate the value in a way that other people can understand it.
Yeah.
I would say, yeah.
Build affinity, build trust, great value for somebody who's nowhere in the vicinity of caring about you in their present moment. Right?
Yeah. And humor does that in a weird way. And just to clarify, I'd be remiss not to say, like, there's other people that explain value much, much better than I am. But I think I told you this. I feel like I'm just reliving our last show or two that we did. But if I had to give my ability or whatever, like the weird thing I do, a term, it's bridge to understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You can't talk about how to set up an ERP on a self-service portal with people that don't know what the word portal means, or like, it's just, it doesn't translate well. How do you create top of funnel or like Eli 5 type of understanding to people where there may be a value and a need and a pain point that can be fixed, or that, something they need to learn. They're not even aware of the problem or what to call it, like how to even diagnose it, how to think through it yet. So I mean, that's what I'm talking about. I think content should be, whatever it is, written, video, should be kind of more in that vein, especially to get people interested. Right. Once you kind of do like a check and establish, like, do you know what this acronym means? What if I said this? I could say right now to you and find out if you liked golf or not. What do you, like, what was your opinion of Scheffler's Champions Dinner menu this year at Augusta National? How many of those words did you understand? So immediately I can ask you a question that if you don't know how to respond to that, then you're not, you know what I mean? Like you don't know about golf.
Well, hold
So,
on. I don't know about, I guess I'm not your target market for the knowledge I need to be able to engage you, because I knew everything except for the dinner menu part, which obviously that makes me like a part-timer masters fan, right? Or golf
right.
fan in general if I don't go deep.
But you could
And
ask me any number, like, so that this is great. I like this back and forth. It's like the only part I didn't get was Champions Dinner. Oh, that's fine. Of all the things that I said in there, like Scheffler, Augusta National, whatever, those are more generalized. I feel like, a lot of people would know
right.
that. Champions Dinner is like a level deeper or higher. It shows more attention or more knowledge or more
Yes.
specific stuff.
I
And
love this
so
conversation.
I can now figure out just from a
Fit.
one sentence, you know about golf, you kind of understand the Masters. Here's how I need to translate the rest of this to you. That person needs to exist like almost per hub, per whatever, right? Is being able to translate complex systems and tech and whatever else you're like application based also for industry use case, for like business data model, recurring, non-recurring usage based in a way that bridges the gap of understanding, because you accelerate everything else after that.
Yes. And that is the number one challenge for us right now, because HubSpot is such an ambiguous word on its own. And when they drop 280 updates, that's the thing. I was talking to Willem Roos today. We finally got started with our onboarding, conversation. And he used to be on the CS side, and now he's on the pre-sale side. And I'm like, first of all, how could they possibly keep up? But also, it's not like, okay, partners, 280 updates, just fit them right into your sales process now, right? So we have to deal with this. Like, hey, we've already got this pipeline that exists, and it's such a challenge to set expectations like properly while also hitting numbers. And what he said was, well, he's like, well, think about the news, Chris. It's like, do you follow the news? I said, try not to. But if there was a cataclysmic event, you'd probably hear about it.
Yeah.
And that's how people get HubSpot updates that matter to them right now.
So, HubSpot, if you're watching, I always like to imagine an actual hub, like a human. Anyway, if you're watching, a way that I think you can, even using that example, right? The first thing I thought of, because, it's me, was it's got to be a world record. I mean, it's got to be. Then I started thinking, maybe not, but what would the Guinness World Record be? So if you're going to drop 280 updates, a recommendation would be take your creative team and marketing team and reach out to Guinness World Record book and do something like figure out what that is, and then do that as a release. And then you could talk through all of them. You know what you do at that point? Who the hell is HubSpot? Why are they in the Guinness? Like, it's so relative. It would bridge a gap of understanding or awareness, really, an awareness gap of, I feel like it's maybe fair to say more people know about Guinness or Guinness Book of World Records than HubSpot. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
So if you're trying to grow like total addressable market and top of funnel opportunities and stay current and relevant and all this, doing something like that, as insane as it is, number one would be really cool. I'd love to know what the record is, and if they could hit it, that would be awesome. I mean, there'd probably be some, weird subcategory of something, but there's got to be, there's opportunity to do that. And then what you do is have people start looking at HubSpot on their own, or trying to figure like, that's an odd thing for them to do. This update, I work in tech or SaaS, or this sounds cool. Like this whatever that is, it at least generates some awareness. Because one of the two things that you're bridging is already familiar. That's kind of the key is these golf videos that we're doing. I talked to our director of playbooks, who is, I don't know if you know Brian Kreutz, but he's super smart and he's super professional, and he doesn't do parodies. Well, I kind of convinced him to do one of these about the Masters and have it
Doesn't
playing
do parodies.
He's a wizard now. But the point is, we use Miro, and he posted it earlier today, and the Miro account stopped by to say, so glad, love this analogy, whatever it was, and they have 500,000 followers.
Mm-hmm.
So my comment was legendary, by the way. I said,
Nailed it.
I said, It's funny that you're here, Miro, because he spends more time on your platform than he does in the sand traps, like David Hasselhoff, whatever I said. But yes, being quick and relevant and having some sort of context. It took some planning. It took a while for us to get those out, but you didn't know about it until they dropped. So if you're flipping to the Masters and you're scrolling LinkedIn and there's Churn Lundquist coming to you live from whatever, it's like you're trying creating those
Connecting.
like,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean, when you do it really well, and it's usually an accident, so it's really, really hard to track, but you can create situations
Exactly.
where it's like manufactured serendipity is what it
Yes.
needs to sound like, right?
Oh man. And it can only happen if you put yourself out there and throw out like words that somebody knows. You don't know if they are going to be around for the context that you're delivering them, but like as you described, it's like there's a just like your master's example to me. Like there's levels of complexity in the
Yes.
message, right? And like you mentioned it, like not everybody knows what portals or customer agent or knowledge base, right? But the closer we get to like orders and order status, right? And Amazon, like, or Domino's pizza tracker, right?
Yeah.
Probably my best, execution of this, right? Like it hits, you got to be willing to throw darts like out there, knowing that there's multiple different dartboards that you're willing to hit and then understand what's happening. I think that's where it's maybe because we're so used to like waiting until the KPIs come in, like to do the analysis, right? We're not there. Like so much of the value is because we're there as we're throwing the stuff out, we can engage immediately in the understanding and learning that happens from that on both sides, right? It's like immediate trust building when there is value, but also it's like, okay, that didn't hit. Like that was the wrong. Probably don't want to attract more of those people.
There's just a
Right.
different asynchronous way of building connection. And this is not new. This has been around since AIM and whatnot, but it's more language based.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you want to do better in marketing, content marketing, brand positioning, hire a linguistics coach. And it was kind of the point I just made about Augusta, the master, Scotty Scheffler, the dinner. How would you most quickly and accurately assess a person's level of understanding? If you could ask them one sentence, right? Let's try another one. If I were to say to you, let me think of a good one. My favorite audio melody from Ocarina of Time was Epona's song. What was yours?
I'm not a Zelda guy.
So, but you at least you knew Zelda. So maybe you didn't know the song, or maybe, like right away. Like if you don't like that type of, I now know, gamer or not, Zelda or not, can you talk on this level? Right? You can do
Mm-hmm.
that with anything. The
Right.
person that learns to do that, and maybe it is AI augmented or helped, but the person that learns to real time translate will win. I just happen to like and be interested in everything because my brain is, you don't want to be in there. So we have another really cool example closer to home example of this is we have a like eternal creator team that I coach. Like probably seen a bunch of rep partners on LinkedIn. That's by design.
Love
Like
it.
we want to help them like highlight their expertise through us, through RP and all that, build a brand, all this stuff. Just mentioned Brian. So I was talking to Tamara, who is on our all like growth marketing team, and I could tell like I've also been in counseling. I was a behavioral therapist for 6 years, so my job was to listen to people well. Imagine that. You would never know that by watching any of my videos, right? Um, but I kept seeing this looking up during responding. She's bilingual, at least. And so as the producer, I was like, "What is going on in your head when you look up? Are you translating live? Like maybe a weird term that I said or something else?" She was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "You should just say it in Spanish first, and that would be a great segue to like, here's what your buyers are hearing." And then the phrase, "What I said was this," which is actually exactly what you needed to hear, and it solves your pain point. but I didn't say it in a way that's familiar to you or native to you or not a way that you're fluent in. Do you know how much of like that's what
Yeah.
that is to me? That's figuring it out. And it now with video, I guess to kind of full circle here, there's a level of immediate understanding and recognition that if you see, I don't know who you would see. If you see this on a Monday morning, an orange top hat, he didn't have to talk. You know who that is, and you know what he's about to tell you. How can you get to a level of familiarity and like asynchronous connection, understanding? Consistency is one way to do it. That's kind of the point. It's been done in so many different ways really well. I just don't think a lot of people are bridging the gap of understanding to what works to normal people, consumers, B2C, whatever, and how you would translate things. Like the golf video is like, hole 2 down here, Carolina Cherry is wide dog leg right, it's par, whatever it was. He's like, just kind of like you want to avoid the sand trap. So intentionally doing that to build a metaphor that would help explain, go to market. I thought it was pretty good. He did a fantastic job. Brian, if you're watching, you're probably not. Shout out.
Great job, Brian. Yeah. I think it's hard because your interest in everything, I'm sure, relates to your interest in people, like as well, right?
Yes.
And that's where, and this is like Brian Garvey today in our community asked a question. And this is where when we talk about helping people just unlock, like find what the unlock is. And it's not always going to be easy, but so much of it is caused by the B2B experience and the way you're supposed to do things, right? He shared that he was in a CEO like mastermind type thing this morning, and somebody shared that the RevOps leader must have a technical background, and that he took it to mean in that moment that something like data engineering or something like that should be required for if you want somebody to be successful.
Yep.
And he was asking for our thoughts. And that's where like the ability to translate to people, like what's going on as AI gets better and better at the technical stuff. Like, do not build your house on just the technical background. My point, and this was, not the majority opinion, was if you're a leader in any department and you can, and you have a strategic mind and you can communicate well enough to create alignment up and down the organization, you can get anything done. You can get anything done. You don't need to know exactly how everything works underneath, especially in RevOps. Obviously, there's a whole like 1,800 partners out here like that can do the RevOps technical stuff for you. But if your organization doesn't have a strategy about what the hell RevOps even means, right? It doesn't, your technical chops mean nothing.
I would even say it doesn't, even if you do have a strategy and even if you do have a delivery mechanism, like even if you do have that, but you can't communicate it in a way that they're going to understand, you're toast.
Yeah. Yep.
It does not matter if you have think about all the things that have translations already, like concerts, church services, political events, all of this. They literally have ASL people and translators there. Why do we not have that in a different? I wrote a skit for this one time and it never made it because it was pretty dark. It was a hostage negotiation, but there are translators, there are mediators there, right? And it's not just like between buyer seller. It's not just between whatever, but the mediator should serve as somebody that makes the language standardized or understandable on both sides. Like, again, shortening the gap or bridging the gap in understanding. If you're trying to, everybody has done this, I would say to some extent without knowing. The easiest, example is opportunities. That's deals in HubSpot. Same thing, right? Like, how do you translate that? How do you translate? People do this all the time without really knowing it. But how would you explain the value of a self-service portal to an auto mechanic shop? I'm sure there's a way. Like, imagine your tickets are just automatically handled, assigned, all this stuff is done. Like, people book their own, customers come in, they don't have to interact. Whatever it takes to, like,
it's usually like You know how you buy stuff on Amazon? Yeah, like that.
So if you can do
Right.
that in a way that makes sense to that individual or company or person or sector or whatnot, then you've got an advantage. Because I
Right.
think a lot of the people don't. It seems like when it works the best, people are doing that intentionally or not, and when it doesn't work or miss the mark, and you're like, man, why not? I don't understand how people don't. That's probably part of it. Is that
Right.
the community? There's a language barrier of some kind, a translation need or whatnot. That's what we've been
Yeah.
talking about. Yeah.
Oh man, especially in this ecosystem, right? And that's where I have gotten so much better at communicating and translating for people as I've been out, creating content, talking about this stuff out loud, seeing how people engage with it. My argument for why Let's Build is successful is because there's so many voices talking about the same thing effectively, which is using HubSpot in a business, but they all have their own way of talking about it. And 10 different people who watch are going to respond differently to the 10 different co-hosts that are on the show and the way that they say the specific thing, right? And if we can't kind of cover the market in that way, and like the difference, I think, and why we need to get here, and it could be a very positive self-fulfilling prophecy where the technical minds just start sharing stuff out loud, right? And this is more than just a copy paste of product updates, right? Like you got to like say things out loud verbally, hear them back to you, see how people respond, and then everybody gets better, right? When Willem brought up the example of if there was a catastrophic event or a great event, right? Even though I don't pay attention to the news, I'm likely to hear about it because of the news mechanism.
Yeah.
Right? There's no news mechanism in the HubSpot ecosystem, right?
Well, I mean,
Not in the
yes,
same media
not,
way, right?
yes. So yes,
So
but no. And it does, yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff, but it's not, that's the part of like familiarity and building an audience and being able to speak into multiple different HubSpot. A lot of their brand account posts in other languages because they have people that would prefer to read updates or whatever it is in different languages. That's fine and needed. So yeah, there's almost an element of man, I don't even know what to call this. This is, there's an unlock that comes with this if we could find it. The DIY product, right? That we just launched. Trying to explain that is difficult. So just right off the top of my head, it's something you build yourself. It's onboarding, right? So originally I'd said it's like the IKEA, but for a portal. What did you think when I said that right now?
I said I'm not going to get enough.
Overpriced,
I'm not going to get
irritating.
enough instructions.
Yeah. So immediately I said that, out loud and said it to somebody. And I think it was Megan. Hey, Megan, was like,
Well, she says
oh,
hello too, I think.
yep. Hello, kids. But the response was like, that doesn't sound good.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll tell you that was my internal response. I didn't say
So,
it out loud back to you. I was like,
but does it insinuate? I mean, this is like the next level. You're talking about feedback from people, right?
yeah.
Does it insinuate that you put it together yourself? Yes.
Yes.
Does it insinuate that you're going to hate it?
Possibly.
Probably. Yeah. So, I mean, that's like next level. It's like, it's really more like kind of the Bob Ross of portals, right? Immediately, like, calm, at your own pace. You don't have to be that good, like happy little contacts. That is the new, after getting that feedback of like, why is this not doing well? I accidentally called it the IKEA of HubSpot and everybody freaked out. Nobody alert. People still think IKEA is too costly. Instructions are weird. There's 1,800 million pieces, that may or may not be there. So that feedback was like, how can we reposition the emotive response from the same type of description? How about Bob Ross? And it's like, well, yeah, people now think it's a painting thing or it's like creative led, and it's really not. So refining the ways to be able to talk is part of that translative process, because you're getting feedback from people, getting feedback general and from different types of people, and then trying to figure out a way to position it that makes sense to them.
Yeah. it's a constant social experiment. And that's where, like, when you're trying to, first of all, accepting that the user base, like, is so diverse and it's exploding faster than anybody can keep up with it. So, and we talked about this a lot. It's like you can play in the space, but you will never have the control over the message, the response. I mean, those things specifically, like the no matter how much time you spend creating the message, it guarantees less and less that it's going to be in front of the person at the right time when you expect it to be, and they're going to have the response you think they're going to have, right?
That is the other side of that people are worried about. I know we're getting close to wrapping up here, but you can have a message that is that shows a connection, shows an association. It's quick, it's public, and ruins your brand if you don't put a little bit of thought, or if it's not the right person, or if you don't, as HubSpotters would say, UGJ, right? I don't even want to list some of those recently from wherever, because they're polarizing for the wrong reason. So they communicate a message that was maybe unintentional, right? There's infinite ways you can do this. You could flip somebody off, right? Maybe that's the best one. It's like, that doesn't mean the same thing. You just take that as an example of like a hand gesture or something that you're doing, but it was not very well received, right? You can position something, because we talked about being responsive, doing it like immediate, like being quick, and then having that kind of bridge or translative element. But if you're not careful, it can be not good. The IKEA one right then was a mild example of that. It's like,
Right.
interesting. Like,
That's where you learn so much. And there are some people, I guarantee, who it resonated in a positive way. Like, I like being able to do my own stuff. And if IKEA means anything, it's that. Like, personally, I know that the sentiment of others, which is why I reacted that way. I've had, great experiences, and I've never had a problem putting anything together, like from IKEA. If it's missing, it's been so easy to go back on the website and get a replacement.
we are not, as far as I know, we're not sponsored
Right.
by IKEA either. So just clarifying for anybody that may be confused.
And that's where there's this element of, do we always have to start? Because it often starts here with leadership teams and the perceived risk of just getting out there with the message and getting feedback without doing all this, you know, the thing in a room, which the focus groups, without doing all that first. Like 6 months later, the message doesn't even matter. Like, you missed the window, right? And that window of 6 months is getting shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter, right? You cannot. This is my whole thesis. You cannot be relevant if you are not willing to show up. It comes back to the day trading attention concept. Like, if you're not there to trade attention on a daily basis, you don't get to participate.
Do you know how much of a departure that is from the last 100 years or so?
It's 180 complete.
Why?
Because we had control, and there's infinite. Like, this is when
I
there's
would say,
abundant.
what'd you say? Because we had control?
Yeah, like, we had control over where to get the information from.
That meant that they had the control. That's exactly the difference to me in the other way. Now, if you have a phone and the internet, you can be a media outlet, period.
Right.
Like, that's what we're doing right now, is like, who's tuning into this? Part of it is like Field of Dreams. Like, if you build go to market, they will come watch it at some point. Part of it is the consistency that you're talking about. But the other part is that before internet and before video and before all this access, you said you can't remain relevant without showing up to what? A press conference, or the things that were already facilitated by the media. You know what I mean? Like, that's where
trade shows.
things. Yes.
Trade shows is a great example. Like,
Yes.
I know the audience is going to be there. I'm going to go show up there. So a lot of times the analogy hits of LinkedIn is a 24/7, 365 trade show. And if
Trade
you
show
knew,
floor.
right, if you knew that your people were going to be at the show and they all of a sudden did it once a month, how often would you be at that show? Right. And that like people don't like answering that question because then they're like, well, then I would have to, prioritize. And it's like, yep.
Yeah.
Right. Meanwhile, you've got this digital space where everybody's sitting, and because you can't view it in this way, like you can't participate when you're the best person to participate. You're the SME, you're the salesperson, you're the best at talking to people. Like, get out there.
Yeah. We need more.
We do. Fun as always, my friend.
This was, hey, I like the back and forth in this. I think treating each other not like rivals at all, but with the ability to interrupt or talk over to create a little more dynamics. I liked it. This was a good one.
It was, and this is maybe a preview of what's to come. Some exciting things coming up this month and beyond, and you'll have to wait until next week, maybe the week after.
What a
not
teaser.
Today, right?
I love it.
Join us next week. Throughout the week, I'm sure you'll be hearing about stuff. I know I've got a lot of stuff going on. Rob's got some stuff going on. Southbound.
The Masters is
up,
on. I mean, what are we doing here? I mean, are you about to log off and go watch the featured card in this afternoon?
I'm not, dude. Like, that's the thing. HubSpot ripped me from sports. Like, that literally happened.
Did you see the episode of, I don't, maybe an Orange Network, but we held our RP fantasy draft on StreamYard and built all of the draft mechanisms out in HubSpot. It was phenomenal. I mean, that
sounds amazing.
I didn't think it could be done, but shout out David Melton for that one. I was like, yeah, absolutely. That everybody got on the call and it was like, is this going to be recorded? And I was like, yes, 1,000,000%. If I need to, sign an NDA or a waiver or whatnot, but yeah, it's not live. I was like, but yes, 100%. That's why you're here. This isn't a Zoom call. This is a StreamYard studio. We're getting content.
Yeah. No, I mean, speaking of that, Cameron doing some really awesome stuff with Admin Arena. I got to test out one of the challenges yesterday, and it's like, man, we can do some fun stuff in HubSpot.
That dude is brilliant. And I'm very glad he's doing this. The whole survivor style thing. I was waiting on him to have an idea that because he's done a bunch of content, right? But an idea that he kind of caught hold, that was, number one, brilliant. Number two, he was in love with it, and three, would have real value. And man, and was gamification. It hits like every box I didn't even know that you could hit.
Right.
So Cameron, if you're watching this, you're probably not. You're probably buried in partner work or building Admin Arena or whatever. But whenever you watch the rerun, just know that we appreciate it.
Yes, indeed. We appreciate everybody stepping up right now. So many creators getting more active, which is the goal here. So we're going to keep at it. Thank you so much for joining us today, and
love you, Megan.
We'll see you next time.
Love you, Evelyn.
Thanks so much, Rob.
See you, bud.